Hello everyone, this is Full Moon Hoos back with another video. I turned on my little LED light here, so the lighting is actually a little bit better. I have a purple bright LED light I forgot in my car that I could have used last video, but that's alright, we have it this time. So what I'd like to talk about in this video, we'll try to keep it short, maybe around 15 minutes or so, maybe a little bit longer, maybe a little bit shorter, but we're going to talk about the film Good Will Hunting. It's about this main protagonist. His name is Will Hunting. He's an orphan. He was abused as a child. And now, when the movie is taking place, he's in his early 20s. He has a group of friends that like to go out to drink. They're kind of like a group of construction workers. They're not the most educated group of friends. But they're loyal to him, which is why he likes them, and why he gets along with them so well. Because he's an orphan, he had a rough upbringing. His dad abused him, and Will Hunting is very talented and gifted. He could solve very complicated math equations, algorithms, and he gets a job at a local school of technology for college students. It's a very prestigious school, and he gets a job as a janitor, and he solves a very complicated equation on one of the whiteboards overnight during one of his janitor shifts. And this problem was meant for one of the teacher's students to solve, or his class to solve. And when he came back in the next day, it was solved, and he didn't know who solved it. And he ended up finding out that it was Will Hunting, the janitor. And this professor is a very he has a medal or an award for his mathematics, and he hunts down Will Hunting, no pun intended. And at this point, Will Hunting had got into some legal problems. He's already been to jail before for getting into fights and stuff, but he got into some more problems, and that professor went to his court date, and he kind of bailed him out, and this professor agreed to have him meet with a psychologist for a couple times, or like once a week for however long, until Will turned 21. So the psychologist ended up being this professor's old college buddy, and it's Robin Williams. And by the way, the main character I'm talking about, Will Hunting, this is Matt Damon when he's very young. And anyways, so Robin Williams takes on this role in Will Hunting's life, and it's as a psychologist that he has 1 hour meetings with him. And Will's he's kind of a cocky guy, you know. He doesn't take stuff very seriously. So like in one of the first meetings, he's talking to Robin Williams, and he's just kind of like looking around the room, and he points out one of the paintings in the room, and it's one that Robin had drawn, and he said something about it, blah, 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 but it ends up turning into a conversation about Robin Williams' wife, who has passed away. But Will makes a comment like, "Oh, that's why your wife left you," or he said something like that, and that rubbed Robin the wrong way, and they didn't really have a good rest of the meeting for that. Robin got very upset, and yeah, so the second meeting comes around, and Robin Williams takes him to an outside location where he talks to Will Hunting about love and how he's never had someone that he's loved as dearly as Robin's wife, for example. And you know, it's all about trying to understand each other. Will Hunting's a very challenged kid. He's super smart. And it's going to turn into this discussion towards the end of the movie, but I'll just get into it right now. These meetings he has with Robin Williams, it turns into, okay, well, why did you get the job as a janitor and solve that problem on the board? You know, what do you really want in life? You know, you're a smart kid, you're talented. You obviously did that for a reason. But anyways, so Will Hunting goes, he has some fun nights out with his friends. He ends up meeting this girl, and they mingle a little bit, and then they get together, and then after that, he likes her a lot, but he's pushing her away at the same time. And it turns out that this is what he does. He pushes those people away, because he's never had anyone in his life, so he just pushes those people away. Because towards the end of his relationship with this girl, she wanted to move to California with him, and she was telling him that she loves him, and he said no, and he couldn't. He thought that he didn't like the idea of imperfections, you know, and he thought that maybe they won't like each other. Like, what if, for example, what if they move to California and she starts not to like him after a week? You know, this is what's going through his head. It's from past events in his life, but it turns out that Robin Williams gives a great example in one of their meetings. It's another meeting, so they meet a lot during this movie, as you can see. So Will Hunting and Robin Williams meet again, and Robin Williams talks about his late wife, his soulmate, his lover that passed away, and how some of the best memories he has with her is silly ones, like how she would fart when she's sleeping, and she would wake him up or wake herself up. And it's imperfections like that that make people love each other. And it's something that Will Hunting is afraid of letting happen or finding out, and he sees them as bad things, you know. So to continue, there's another meeting. I don't know if this is at the same one, but there's another point in the movie where Robin Williams tells Will about how he met his wife, and it was at one of this World Series game for baseball, and it's one of the best games in history apparently. And it was right when Robin started talking about it, Will knew exactly what game it was, how it ended. It went to like 15 innings or something like that. And Robin talked about how he had a ticket to the game, and how he explained how the game ended to Will, and Will just assumed he was at the game. But then he talks about how he met his wife that night, and he saw her, and he was almost hypnotized by her, and how he had to talk to her, and they ended up having dinner that night or something like that. And Will just says, why wouldn't you just go to the game versus meeting some random girl, you know? And, you know, he just puts into perspective how Robin's very soft-spoken, but he shows a lot of emotion during the movie, his character. And it's just, I think it's something new for the protagonist of Will to hear someone like Robin talk about his life, and how he doesn't seem that he messed it up, because Will Hunting's character is kind of cocky, a little bit of arrogant, very smart, intellectual, deep thinker, overthinker. And Robin, he keeps trying to tell Will that he didn't mess up his life. He doesn't regret meeting his life. He loves every moment he had with his wife. And later in the movie, Robin talks about how I guess he closed off ever since his wife passed, he's closed off the idea of any relationships. But I think maybe towards the end, Will maybe gets him to open that up again. I'm not sure, but yeah, so the professor that ended up putting this all together, the one that wrote the equation on the board, he's not a very good guy. He's apparently Robin Williams was friends with him in college, as I mentioned, and Robin was a little bit smarter than him, as they try to like let you know that in the movie. There's a scene about it, and then but that professor ended up getting this medal or this award of honor in mathematics, and he thinks that Robin Williams is jealous of him because he got that, and it's not the case, and it's this weird relationship between them two, and the professor wants Will to use his genius talents to get a good job in the government, to solve these problems. And there's this one scene where he solved this insanely hard problem, or this algorithm, something to do with math, and he drops it on the professor's table, and the professor is sitting there, and he doesn't even know how he did it. And something that took Will like 10 minutes to do, he couldn't do that, period. It would take him years to solve that problem, and Will ends up like grabbing it from his hand and burning it. It's because Will explains how he doesn't just want to work one of these jobs. He doesn't want to be explaining stuff to people the rest of his life. It's like the curse of being too smart. You're too aware. You don't want to explain this to people. Will towards the end of the movie, he talks about how he would be fine working a construction job for the rest of his life. But one of his close friends, one of the construction workers that I mentioned earlier, he says that would be the worst thing if he found out that Will was working a construction job in 20 years, because it would be like a waste of his talent. And Will doesn't understand that at that point. He's still kind of caught up in his own way of thinking. And that character says the best thing for him to experience would be when he's picking up Will for work, knocking on the door, and finding out Will doesn't answer the door because he's gone and done something better with his life. And that ends up happening in the end of the movie. Will ends up applying for one of these government jobs, but before he had previously interviewed for one of these government jobs, and he explains the people hiring him are asking him, why should you work here? And then they're like, it's not why should you work here, it's why shouldn't you work here. And being Will's character, he gives an elaborate reasoning of why he shouldn't work there. He's like, I could, on my first day at this job, it's working for the government, he said someone can come and drop an equation or some problem on my desk that no one can solve, and if I solve it, what if that information is used across the globe, and it's used for helping some war, or it helps the aid of bombing another country and killing kids, innocent kids, because when you work for the government and it's going to be some high intelligence agency like that, and you're solving these complex algorithms, that's what he's saying. He's saying that he knows what these companies are about, what they use this information for, and he's saying that that's just not worth it, And then he takes it one step further. He talks about how he gets very interpersonal with it. He talks about how overseas, if something happened they use his information, something happens, it affects the the relationships between countries for oil. He gets really complex with it. He talks even about how the guy working with the oil, he's like messing around, not paying attention. A bunch of oil falls into the water. It pollutes the sea. He's kind of talking about like a butterfly effect here of bad things that could happen when you're in positions like these. And yeah, it's very interesting to think about, because I would have to agree that a lot of these positions that are within the government, or require a lot of knowledge, you're not going to have clean hands usually. There's going to be a blood on your hands, and so the point being with this movie, it comes down towards the end where he applies for one of the jobs, he gets it. Robin Williams has like one or two last meetings with him, and that Robin asks Will what he wants to do, because they're coming down through the last meetings, and he's still being smart with them. He says, I want to be a shepherd. I want to go get some land and some sheep. And Robin Williams kicks him out of the room. He still thinks he's being a smart ass with him. And this was before he decided to apply for the job. But yeah, then he applies for one of the government jobs. And then his friend goes to pick him up for work with his construction job. And he's not there, so his friend's happy about that. And then the professor and Robin Williams end up making up towards the end of the movie. They go out for a drink. They both say sorry. But I would say Robin Williams' character in this movie is a really good. Him and Will's dynamic and Robin Williams' individual character is really good. I like how he analyzes his past. He thinks a lot before he says stuff. His overall character is just good. He's a psychologist, and he could have went plenty of other routes, and it's kind of like the other professor tells him that. I'm pretty sure he tells him during the movie, like, he's mad that he messed up and he just became a psychology professor when he could have been something better. But he has no regrets, because he met his wife. He loved every second he spent with her. So they end up making up, and then Will, at the end of the movie, ends up going to meet the girl he was with, that he told her he doesn't love her, and she was confessing his love for him, but he was too scared that, just from his past and all that he just didn't want to go through with it. So he ends up, I think he quits the job with the government that he got, and he leaves and goes to California and is going to meet up with her, and that's how the movie ends. It just shows him driving to California. He leaves a letter in the mail to Robin. And yeah, it's overall a good movie. I recommend everyone watch it. And there's a lot to get out of that movie. The main thing I would say in that movie would be to have intention, regardless of what your upbringing was. If you had a challenged upbringing, if you had a non-challenging upbringing, and you don't know everyone's complete story, so it's being aware of that. But you never know. There's two sides of every coin, Someone that inherited a lot of money from a family member could be wishing every night that they could give that money back for them to be alive, or something like that. Or they could just give that money back in general and work for their own money. But also just letting, just being intentional about what you want to do, having having someone that you could talk to about hard things in life, being vulnerable and saying what's on your mind, you know, because no one's gonna know. No, people can't read minds, you know. Telling your close friends hard information, or telling close family information, you know, or just general things in life that make you happy, sad, and just being there in every moment, you know, living in the present, not overthinking the future like Will does at times in this movie. That's why he doesn't go and follow this girl to California, you know. It's because he overthinks the future. Yeah. And it's also in this movie, it covers a lot about how Robin Williams points out how Will hasn't lived enough life yet to realize some of these things, you know. And that's why he's so quick to be cocky and arrogant, and he's so smart and he knows everything. But Robin tries to tell him that he doesn't have enough of life experience yet. You know, you have to live some life to gain some knowledge, and that's true. You know, you could be the smartest person ever with some genius IQ on how to solve these complex algorithms in mathematics, but you don't have enough life experience and the way the world works, the way humans work. You know, it's definitely not something that you could just learn like that. You know, you have to make mistakes. You have to just live it every second, every moment of it, and just keep moving forward. Yeah, if you see something, be intentional about it, be genuine about it, go after it, and if it doesn't end up working out the way you wanted it to, then there's nothing much else you can do. But yeah, I mean, that would be the takeaway from this movie, I would say. It's playing the cards you're dealt, and then you gotta just keep playing, you know. I hope everyone enjoyed that discussion. Great movie. Robin Williams, rest in peace, one of the greatest actors, often forgotten, but he also struggled with mental illness later in his life. Yeah, it's very sad, you know. But yeah, I hope everyone has a great rest of their night, evening, afternoon, morning, and take it easy, my friends.